Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the absolute most fascinating dynamics in our modern world, the challenge of understanding identity, community, and belonging across borders. We literally live in an era where people are on the move more than ever before. But here's the thing, just because you leave a physical geography doesn't mean you leave it behind in your heart or mind, right?
So, what does home actually mean when your life is spread across borders? Take a second and just really think about that. Imagine the complex, deeply human reality of feeling tied to two completely different places at the exact same time. It's that wild feeling of having your feet firmly planted in one soil, but your roots, well, they're reaching all the way across the ocean to another. To wrap our heads around this, we really need to look at the word diaspora. It actually comes from ancient Greek, and it originally meant to scatter seeds over a wide area. It's a beautiful metaphor, isn't it? Because when seeds are scattered, they don't just vanish into thin air. They land in new environments, they adapt, and they grow, all while keeping the genetic memory of exactly where they came from. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the big three concepts, look at what makes a diaspora, touch on globalization and networks, explore 5 lenses on diaspora, and finally end with longing, belonging, and in between. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The big 3 concepts. Laying the foundation.
First up, diaspora. Simply put, these are people who've settled away from their original homeland, but, and this is crucial, they actively keep some form of connection to it. Historically, this term was used for very specific populations, like Jewish or Greek communities living outside their homelands. But today, the sociological definition has evolved. Now it includes any group or community settled outside its traditional ancestral geography that just refuses to sever those ties with its origins. That brings us to our second concept, transnationalism. This means living across borders while keeping real, active social ties with the homeland. Think back to our scattered seeds analogy. Transnationalism means these seeds aren't just sitting isolated in their new soil. Nope, they are maintaining living, breathing ties with the place they left behind. They're stretching their lives across borders through travel, cultural exchanges, and, of course, constant digital communication. And this brilliantly illustrates our third concept, globalization. This is the modern engine making all these connections possible. Fast travel, instant communication, totally integrated markets. These are the massive structural forces that allow diaspora members to stay in constant touch with home. Without globalization, modern transnationalism wouldn't have nearly the speed or scale that it does today, for sure. Section 2. What makes a diaspora? The rules of the game. So, how do we actually identify these communities? Scholar William Safran treats this almost like a diagnostic checklist. He argues that a true diaspora follows a specific life cycle. It starts when a community spreads out from an original homeland, but crucially, clings to a shared memory and this kind of idealized myth of that ancestral place. Because this core identity stays so incredibly strong, they only partially mix into their new host society. Instead, they actively keep links to their roots alive, often driven by this ultimate wish, even if it's purely imagined, to one day return home. It's not just a one-time move, it's a relentless, ongoing process of holding onto identity across generations.
Section 3. Globalization and networks. Staying connected.
Okay, so how do these communities actually survive and thrive in a practical sense? Well, they essentially deploy a dual network strategy. On one side, you've got vertical networks. These are formed locally, right inside the new host country, where communities band together to fight discrimination and build economic success. But on the flip side are lateral networks. These are the global links reaching all the way back to the original homeland, or laterally to other diaspora factions scattered all over the globe. It's a real two-pronged approach. You're fighting for space locally while linking up globally. Section 4. 5 lenses on diaspora. Framing the experience.
Now, what's really interesting here is how academics actually study these groups. Think of these as different academic glasses you can put on. Retentionists argue that migrant cultures stay mostly unchanged, while adaptationists swing the total opposite way, focusing on how migrants adjust to their new society. But honestly, both can kind of miss the internal community dynamics. That's where plural society and ethnicity lenses come in. They look at the internal friction, how identity actually grows from local struggles over class, status, and power. And finally, the political economy lens zooms way, way out, looking at the diaspora through the massive structural inequalities of global capitalism and colonialism. Look, no single framework gives you 2020 vision, but each one highlights a totally vital piece of the puzzle.
Section 5. Longing, belonging, and in between. The emotional core.
let's cut through the academic jargon for a second and zoom in on the deeply personal side of this. At the emotional core, we have deterritorialization, which is basically the weakening of ties and the literal uprooting of a culture from its original physical place. But that's immediately countered by reterritorialization. This is just the human process of being replanted. Uprooted cultures put down new roots and gain entirely new meanings in a brand new geography. You leave your homeland, experience that painful uprooting, but then you synthesize parts of your heritage with your new environment to rebuild. And this creates an absolutely incredible psychological tension between longing and belonging. On one side, you have the diasporic imaginary, the memories and the deep, persistent yearning for the home that was left behind. On the other side, modern transnational networks, the daily life, the economic ties, the real-time belonging in the host country. People in a diaspora are constantly navigating this in-between state. They can be incredibly engaged, active citizens of their new country, while their core identity stays intricately, undeniably tied to their origins. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to think about. We've talked about huge structural forces, global networks, and academic frameworks today, but ultimately, all of this is driven by people. So, when you work at your own life, your family history, or the communities living right next door to you, which roots shape who you are today? Are they the roots of the soil you stand on right now? Or are they roots reaching across the world to a distant homeland? Thank you so much for joining us for this journey. Keep asking questions and keep exploring.